from. You could say I'm India China Fellow, Urbanization Globalization 2006. You can say about your company, what you do.
Okay. Hi, my name is Hiren Doshi. I am the first cohort for India China Fellowship, and I work for a company called Infosys. I've been working with Infosys for the last 10 years, have been traveling around the world. I've spent the last 5 years in China, and very recently I've moved to London.
Great, thank you. So you've been working for Infosys for the last 5 years and living in Beijing, but you applied for the fellowship. Why did you do that?
Well, I still remember the first time when Ashok and Jianing, they actually came to meet me to discuss the idea around fellowship. At that time, I was not interested in fellowship, but just wanted to brainstorm some ideas with them. But after listening to what this fellowship was all about, the kind of platform they were providing for exchange of ideas between 5 fellows from India and 5 from China seemed pretty interesting. So that's the reason when the applications were out, I did apply for this and I just give it a shot. Again, there was an urge of doing something outside my professional career, which very few people from my background would try to do. But the whole theme of urbanization and globalization was on my mind, and it just seemed the right kind of platform for me to use and contribute actually.
And you lived in China for 5 years.
Yes.
And what do you think you bring to the table for the EC Fellowship, having had that experience?
Actually, I was the only Indian fellow living in China, and the reason they did this was that I was able to bring a unique perspective about what China is and try and help bridge the gap between India and China. Basically educate the Chinese fellow about the India, how to work with them, and same thing for Indian fellows, how to work with Chinese, because none of them actually had real life experience working with each other. So that was, I think, the perspective with which I was chosen as a fellow, apart from what I personally wanted to contribute in this whole fellowship. So that was a unique perspective which I brought, and 5 years was actually a significant amount of time to have understood some finer nuances culturally as well as socially about how Chinese operates.
And reflecting on the last 2 years of having been a fellow, going to the residencies, going back to India for one of the residencies, and now coming back to the US for the second time, what are some of the major things that you could imagine, you can come up, what are some of the thoughts that come to your mind when you reflect on this experience?
Couple of things. See, the first thing, when we started, again, as we all keep on saying, it was more of an experiment. Neither that India-China Institute knew where this was going, nor none of any of these fellows knew actually what we were trying to accomplish here, except that we had a broad vision, very ambitious vision. We wanted to try and accomplish something which nobody else has done, using this platform which India-China Institute via New School can provide, and just bring bunch of intelligent people together and see what we can accomplish. Now, from the first residency which happened right here in New York, and for the last 2 years, one thing which really surprised me is that amount of discussion which actually have enriched all of us happened on a much broader scale than our individual projects. We were able to get hold of resources, access to very senior bureaucrats, as well as academicians, as well as resource people under the New School banner, which we normally wouldn't have access to, and that helped us wider the amount of discussion which we would not have typically had. We would have focused just on the project, but we were able to actually enrich our experience on a much wider base.
And what about yourself professionally? What has the fellowship done for you professionally? Has it done anything for you professionally?
Well, no, it enormously helped me in the way I see China. The things which I learned about China during the last 2 years some of the things were from a very different perspective. The issues around poverty, the issues around migration, the issues which led to the urban conglomeration. Just from my profession, we never seem to focus on these issues. But this helped me see China from a very different perspective, and at the end of which I feel that yeah, I understood China in all 360 degrees, rather than just working there as an expat and just seeing China more from an expat perspective. So that definitely helped me from a personal perspective, not so much from a professional perspective, but I added a new dimension to my profession. I ended up writing series of articles in a leading financial daily. So that brought a new dimension again to my personal self.
And the publications you did in Financial Express, what compelled you to write those essays?
It started with a couple of articles which explains some final points about China in Indian media. And again, there was no systematic attempt by any leading financial daily to actually write about China on a sustainable basis. So I was invited for that. And after writing a couple of articles, the response was pretty good. And then I was encouraged to actually continuously write for them. So even the choice of topics which I have done was very diverse, right from the structural issues with Chinese financial reform to more popular things like Olympics and the stock exchange, to how the retail operations is working in the Chinese market, so on and so forth. So I've tried expanding the horizon about what I write about China, very varied fields which has different kind of audiences interested in it, and try to share my perspective of an Indian living in China for last 5 years of what I think about it.
And what kind of responses did you get from?
Very interesting actually. A lot of times they mistook me for a professor. I was invited for a lot of conferences. I remember one very well where I wrote a piece on innovation, and I was invited actually as a chief speaker for a seminar on innovation. Very recently, export trade magazines actually have picked up my article, and they wanted to publish this, where they send this to all trade missions worldwide. So they've picked up my article on multilateral and bilateral trade. The response has been actually pretty good.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And one last question is, knowing what you know now, what would you say to the COHO 2 fellows?
My advice to COHO 2 would be to see this fellowship as an experience and not more from an end result. The reason is, even after finishing the fellowship for the last 2 years, none of the fellows from cohort 1 feels that this is it. This has just ended. We just finished a very heated discussion of what we are supposed to do after this fellowship, and we are still thirsty. We still need more after this going forward. So my advice for cohort 2 is to complement what we have done, enrich the foundation which is laid by the fellows from the first cohort, and make it suitable so that after say 5 or 10 years have a vision, a little longer vision, that we have a collection of 100 200 experts between China and India who actually understands each other's country in a much larger scale. That way you have that base to start influencing relationship from trade perspective, from political perspective, from social perspective. You can learn from each other much faster, so on and so forth. So see this more from an experience point of view rather than just from an end result of what they're expected to deliver.
Thank you. Great. Thank you very much.
谢谢。